And again, explain how about the pharmaceuticals like upstream and how this is toxic to us.
Now, well, just the non-filtered water, not only are we dealing with the potential challenges with chlorine or fluoride, but thinking of, the amount of people that, flush toxic chemicals down the toilet that gets into the water system that really doesn't ever get filtered out unless you're filtering it out. And it's one of, like, when I talk about fundamentals of health, with people through the years, they always say the second most important fundamental of your health is to properly hydrate the cells in your body. And not only just hydrating, but hydrating with good, clean, pure, filtered water.
You're listening to the Nutrition World Podcast, a show about navigating the intricacies of holistic wellness. We're a natural health food store located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we believe that optimal health and peak performance should be accessible to everyone. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Brian Strickland. I'm the producer of the show. And today we have the honor of speaking with Dr. Glen Depke. Dr. Depke is a naturopathic doctor. He has his own clinic out in California, but he also worked very closely with Dr. Mercola for many years. He was a nutritionist and very active on Mercola.com and actually still is. But Ed wanted to sit down and chat with them just about some simple lifestyle changes that people can put into effect to become their healthiest selves. And we're going to cover a wide variety of topics today, from hydrogen to sleep to high blood pressure and everything in between. So it's a little bit of a varied topic episode, and it's a little bit of a longer one, but there are a ton of great nuggets in this episode. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. Here's a conversation between Ed and Dr. Glen Depke.
Here we are again with another exciting episode, one that I've looked very forward to. If any of my listeners and people who talk to me ever speak, that I probably have mentioned a person more often than any other in this whole field, and that is Dr. Mercola, Joseph Mercola. He has been an amazing innovator. I learned so much from him. I've been, of course, doing this for almost 43 years. He's been doing it 30 plus, I know, maybe 40, I'm not sure. But with the way of the world and such, he's not able to actually be interviewed at this point, even though I've had a couple interviews on The Holistic Navigator with him. But his right-hand man, Dr. Depke, is with us today, who's very skilled, been with Dr. Mercola for several years, and actually is a national educator for Dr. Mercola. And welcome to Nutrition World, Dr. Depke.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
We are here to empower people who are interested in being empowered and learning what they need to know to manage their own health. And as Dr. Mercola speaks of often, I speak of very often, is we have to put together our own toolbox. Do not expect who you call your health professionals generally to have this toolbox. Not saying we don't need those health professionals. Hey, if I get a terrible UTI, I have a car wreck, something happens to me, that's where I'm going. They are marvelous. They're also marvelous at delivering babies and doing surgery when you need it. But the bigger picture of treating chronic disease and slowing aging, they don't have a clue. I think we all know that. So Dr. Mercola did an article a few months ago called The Top Tips for a Healthier Life. And I want us to kind of go through this because instead of having one specific topic, I want to hit a lot of topics in a very short period of time that I know even well-read people may have several of these that they won't really realize that this is very important. So can you go through some of these tips for a healthier person?
Yeah, absolutely, Ed. And it's one of those things where for every listener out there to recognize that really every day or every moment is a new beginning of, creating a focus to be the best version of you. It's something that is an important focus for Dr. Mercola. It's a very important focus for me. And there's certain aspects, even to summarize, that are really so important to be the healthiest you. To recognize that overall, we obviously have to optimize our vitamin D levels. We have to really have a significant focus on always supporting our immune system function. Really getting to the point of making sure that you're supporting your liver function on a regular basis because of all the different, important aspects of liver function for your health. And in other aspects, we have to really focus on supporting our vision, really supporting a healthy inflammatory response. And sometimes, and it's not just about supplements too, it's we have to think of, what's going in our body. Dr. Mercola talks about this all the time, how the importance of eliminating processed foods, and especially foods that are high in seed oils, is processed sugars, or our regular exposure to electric EMFs or electromagnetic fields. And also even on the perspective of, be careful with what we're watching. Like, not everybody has your best interests at hand, whether you're on the internet or visiting social media. And some of the things that are so important to include, things like, and likely we'll get a little bit deeper in this later, but the importance of magnesium, because literally 80% of everybody watching here right now is likely deficient in magnesium. The importance of collagen, which is the second most abundant aspect of your body outside of water. The importance of something simple like just drinking filtered water, or the nutrients that we need to be healthy, focusing on our overall fundamentals of health, and really something that most people want to achieve nowadays, which is really healthy sleep that brings us that state of, I tell people all the time, like, every day we should wake up like little kids at Christmas time, because that's how good our sleep is. We're just ready to take on the day.
I love that. I love that so much, because there's not one single thing normally that decreases our health, and there's not one single thing that and vastly improves it. It is a combination. And I use an analogy a lot in my consultations, that if you think of your blood chemistry and your health kind of like an orchestra, and this orchestra with 500 musicians in it, if you were listening to it and it had very out of tune music, you would not find normally one musician that's causing it. You would go in and you look at many, many of them. You might find a couple dozen. Then you can create the kind of harmony in music, which is the same as optimal health. Now, I know people who've listened and watched us at Nutrition World all these years know a lot about vitamin D. In fact, Nutrition World spent the last 2 years giving away free vitamin D to firemen, policemen, healthcare workers, and teachers. And we did this because we know it saves lives. We don't want to get into that too much right now. Big point. You need to get blood testing in order to realize whether you're low and how much is too much with vitamin D. And I know Dr. Mercola speaks of that constantly. And as far as tuning up the immune system, I don't think there's a time that people have had more exposure to information nutritionally as far as that. And so, the big hitters, and you go into this, is NAC is one of those for me. And tell the listeners a little bit about NAC.
Yeah, NAC, the N-acetylcysteine, it's one of the big things for me, and most people don't understand this, Ed, is that it really is very supportive for glutathione production in the body. And that's so important, because glutathione, in essence, is the body's primary antioxidant. And it's so important in the body. The body has the ability to manufacture it, and even has a system to recycle it. So that, just knowing that tells you how essential that is for your body to function properly. And with the NAC encouraging the glutathione, which then has positive effects across the board in the body, and has a major impact on supporting liver function, brain health, and really it's endless. And having proper glutathione levels in your body helps to support every other antioxidant that you would consume in food or supplements on a regular basis. And with that, it's not just the glutathione, which in and by itself is enough, but getting deeper into the support for the liver. We have to recognize that the liver is the body's primary source of detoxification. And simply put, Ed, we live in a toxic world. Years ago, I read some research where they looked at the breast milk in women who live in the wilderness areas of Alaska, still finding that they had PCBs and chemicals in their breast milk, and they don't live anywhere near a big city or manufacturing or anything like that. So I really can't say enough about the importance of NAC and its supportive factor really across the board.
And I know that there's been some controversy with NAC because they were trying to make it prescription. We don't know where that's headed. I do recommend to people to stock up. I did a video on YouTube some months ago that I talked on NAC, and it's got over 325,000 views at this point. So the thing is, it's in every emergency room too, because it is used for Tylenol poisoning or liver dysfunction. It's extremely safe, and I've had so many positive reports of good good side effects of NAC, and one of them was improving eyesight from some people that I actually, a physician, Dr. Michael Murray, he did a big article on how his eyesight improved through the use of NAC during the pandemic, because that's when he used more of it. I will always take it because it's anti-aging, and if people don't know that, I am less young than I used to be at 65, so I'm in this club of I'm doing all I can for anti-aging. So that plus, of course, other nutrients from the zinc to the beta glucans to vitamin C, quercetin, all those have been found to be very, very effective to help slow father time's ravages and to help maintain an optimal immune system. If there's one thing we've been taught the past 2 years is we have a natural pharmacy within. This is a military that we have, yet traditional thinking just disregards it. They think that the drugstore is where all the immune system comes in, or a ventilator or this or that, and it's simply not true. And it's been, very harsh because a lot of people have suffered because of that agenda and lack of knowledge sometimes. So now, enzymes, systemic enzymes. I'm a huge fan of these. What are systemic enzymes?
Yeah, the systemic enzymes, it's so different. Most people, when they think of enzymes, they think of digestive enzymes, which is such a minuscule, amount of the enzyme activity in your body. The body has these metabolic enzymes that are essential for all of basically the chemical processes in your body to occur to sustain life. And a lot of times, people just have a focus on digestive enzymes and don't look at these systemic enzymes, or also known as proteolytic enzymes. And the key with the proteolytic enzymes, though, or the systemic enzymes, is you don't take them with food. You take them away from food, because if you take them with food, your body the enzymes will be used to break down your food. Yet that's not the main efficiency of this. Because the systemic enzymes are there almost to support your body in cleansing the blood, to enhance and support the immune system, to maintain a healthy inflammatory response. And one of the things too, just thinking about it from the perspective of just cleaning out the dirty proteins in the body, potentially these fibrins, which are causing blood clots, or really any of these other really materials that we consider these dirty enzyme or dirty proteins that are having a significant negative impact on our health on a regular basis. And the use of these enzymes has been around for literally generations. I remember studying this with natural medicine in Germany, and how popular those systemic enzymes were. And in our country, this is almost like a newer thing for most people. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of both the lumbrokinase and the serrapeptase acting as the support for the cleansing of the blood on a regular basis.
And I have 2 grandsons. They're very, very young. They have, and all young people produce a tremendous amount of these natural systemic enzymes. And that helps the body too, again, like you said, cleanse it, get rid of pathogens, get rid of toxins, also maintain the right fibrin in the blood. I will always take one of those enzymes. I actually take nattokinase, which is just similar to serrapeptase. I'm taking that the rest of my life, and I have been doing it for 15 years because one of my, I don't have a huge amount of fears, but I am a hypochondriac still. And, a blood clot is something that none of us want. Well, nattokinase for me gives me a sense of well-being that if I take it morning and evening, because I see that it's worked. It's not like I just guess. I know it works. So yes, enzymes away from food is something that we need. I know there are a lot of clinics that treat serious diseases really recommend this between meals. Now, as far as liver health, and we're in a country that is epidemic with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And I see clients, we have 17 practitioners here, and we see people a lot with their stories, and they tell us it is every day we're getting someone with a fatty liver, and they say, I hardly drink at all, or I don't drink. So what's going on with this, and talk about the choline part of this puzzle.
Yeah, and that's such a big part, and you're so right on, Ed, too, because most people who aren't drinking in any level of excess, dealing with a fatty liver, and they just don't recognize that so much of it is tied into the high amount of fructose, and even worse, the high fructose corn syrup in our diet. It's actually been shown to potentially even be as bad or worse than alcohol consumption, from a fatty liver perspective. And it's rampant in our society. And the amounts of fructose and high fructose corn syrup in our regular diet of the typical American is just like off the charts. And with the choline, which is really such a big part of this, and because the choline is it's also supportive for DNA synthesis. It's important for healthy mitochondria, and really choline as a supplement is beneficial. And people can also look at it from choline rich foods, things like wild caught Alaskan salmon, krill oil, which I'm always a huge proponent. I take krill every day, for not only the omega-3 fatty acids, but the fact that it's also it's naturally bound with phospholipids. So it's both water and fat soluble. And on top of that, the natural occurring astaxanthin. Yeah, but other things that you could look at, like organic pasture chicken, or vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, shiitake mushrooms, or pasture-raised egg yolks. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can increase our choline, whether through supplementation or even through nutrition. And just as a simple example, like a single hard-boiled egg can contain about 25% of your daily requirements of choline. Yeah, and it's amazing that people still don't achieve this on a really a regular daily basis.
And it's also amazing how eggs are still demonized by a lot of people, and especially credible, high-powered, credible physicians who think eggs are going to be toxic. And it's one of those crazy myths that got started early that just keeps hanging on. I call it kind of medical inertia. Well, another topic that actually I was delayed in really realizing this, and we do the best we can, but the use of all vegetable seed oils. And I know that even all the way down to macular degeneration, to artery health, to aging fast, I used to think, lots of flaxseed oils and lots of this good canola and this and that. And, as long as it was organic, it was fine. No, vegetable seed oils are toxic across the board, aren't they?
Couldn't agree with you more. And it's, we're looking at it from a perspective of, these omega-6 fatty acids, they're really, and it's almost like when we're talking about the fructose and the high fructose corn syrup, it's in almost everything nowadays that's processed, right? Mm-hmm. And these omega-6 fatty acids are primary, this is so important, they're primary contributors to nearly all chronic diseases when they're consumed in excessive amounts. And it's almost like a metabolic poison that is really also limiting the mitochondria function and the ability to produce, really energy at a cellular level. And add mitochondria. I can literally talk all day about mitochondria because most people have heard that it's the powerhouse of the cell, which is true. Yet most people don't know the impact that mitochondria has on the body, such as, you really start with just 97% of the body's energy. On top of that, the high mitochondria needs, so the kidneys, the liver, the muscular system, the heart, and then also the function of the brain. And these omega-6 fatty acids, along with the excessive sugar that we take in on a regular basis, has such a negative, that's the 1-2 negative punch that most people are dealing with every day.
It's actually a wonder that we do as well as we do, and then we actually still live a decent amount of time. When I really started studying the depth of the toxicity of vegetable oils, and you're right, every packaged food almost has it. And one of the keys to this, in my mind, is we can't live a perfect diet. We don't want to live in a cave. We want to still function and go out and have fun with family and friends. So my number one goal is to raise enough of the omega-3 in my blood system where at least the ratios are not terrible. Well, to do that, you have to supplement. I have 27 employees. I tested all 27 about 7 months ago on the finger prick test that we actually offer here at the store. And all my employees care about what they do. They believe in what we stand for. They all supplement, and they eat better than 90% of the people. And 50% of my employees were under 5% index. That is not healthy. So that means even if they do eat, which they will eat some vegetable oils, it's not going to be in a good ratio. So I'm hugely invested in considering this being picky about vegetable oils, safflower, sunflower, all these, I'm really concerned. Now, there are a few of those can be a little better if it's made right, but stick with what? Avocado kind of fats and olive oil done right. Most olive oils are contaminated. Don't believe the bottle just because it says it. I believe in organic butter. I believe in some amounts of coconut oil. But next, magnesium. I did a podcast on The Holistic Navigator on the benefits of magnesium. And I think what it has 300 purposes in the body, magnesium does, which is more than any nutrient that we sell.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing, Ed, as I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, is 80% of our culture is likely deficient in magnesium. And really, when you look at the research, anywhere from 300 up to maybe 1,000 or more processes in the body are dependent on magnesium. And it's one of those, it's just one of those nutrients that we have to take care of. And for me, because every day I take magnesium, Ed, and I take the L-threonate form of magnesium because of its ability to not only really support our magnesium levels and all of the different processes that are essential to magnesium in the body. And the threonate form, though, is the form that's been shown to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier and much easier get through the cell membrane and into the cell to become intracellular. Because as you know already, and I'm sure, with the level of education you provide, that a lot of your members and followers also know that, to really get the advantage of the nutrient, it has to become intracellular. It has to get through the cell membrane and enter into the cell. And that's where the magnesium threonate comes in. And to me, it's almost that combination of, yes, take your magnesium L-threonate daily, and also, reach for foods that are high in magnesium, spinach, Swiss chard, collard greens, broccoli greens, Brussels sprouts, and so much more. So you're getting the combination of what's coming in through your food and nutrition, as well as the benefit of the supplement, which to me is essential because of the world that we live in.
That's wonderful. And, I still say every day, the knife and fork is still the most powerful weapon we have. So it's not like you can just eat what you want, but take supplements. So don't think that. And also, I'm glad you brought up the threonate. I want to ask you a question, because now if someone supplements only with threonate, it will not only supply the ability to go through the brain barrier, which the others don't, but it will supply everything for the physical body. So they could literally focus just on threonate, or do they need other forms of magnesium?
Yeah. For myself, the only form I take is the threonate form. And the one thing I do say, because of the high likelihood of deficiency and why magnesium is so important, I do tell people all the time, is if you don't take magnesium, take it regardless of the form, so you're getting something in. And, but my favorite form and what I use every day is the L-threonate form.
Perfect. Well, I know that another tip is improve bowel evacuation. Now, I guess that's focusing on not being constipated, making sure you're relieving yourself every day of the majority of your toxins. So we all know how important that is. And my number 2 most popular podcast on the Holistic Navigator was on constipation. A lot of different ways. And again, we have been somewhat harmed by some bad advice over the years, which is take laxatives, Miralax, all these things that create dependencies in an urgent situation. I'm all about that, but not on an ongoing basis. And we probably need to move on from that one, because you can listen to my podcast if you want to hear about that. Now, one of my, again, slogans is aging and falling apart is much connected with chronic inflammation. That's why here we have blood testing every Tuesday, and we test markers for that: high sensitivity C-reactive protein, sometimes SED rates, sometimes other things. When a body is inflamed, it's going to try to patch itself. It's going to try to do things. It's going to start falling apart. So what do we do about chronic inflammation? Because a lot of times when I mention that to a client, here's what they say. Well, I take an aspirin a day, or I take an Advil. Because it makes sense. I mean, they're called anti-inflammatories on the bottle. So tell people what that really means.
Yeah, and the whole thing, because inflammation, and number one, what I always like to share about that is, just go to your favorite browser and just punch in the search, what does chronic inflammation cause? And you'll basically see every chronic disease state known to man as an end result of that. And from the perspective, like, we want inflammation in the body, because the inflammation is a part of a healing crisis. Yet we want just acute inflammation that's there to help the body move on in a very positive level. So ultimately what we want to do is we want to support a healthy inflammatory process. And and some of the things too, Ed, is even when we were talking about the vegetable oils, like it's important to get the omega-3 to 6 ratios properly. So eliminating those vegetable oils, making sure that we're getting foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. And really, and nowadays, because of the really the lack of really what I would say would be the optimal level of nutrition across the board, it really does have that dependency on taking your omega-3 fatty acid nutrients and supplements as well, like the krill oil. Even myself, Ed, every day I take keto krill and I take herring caviar oil, both because I know how important what you were talking about is. And really from the perspective, if you want to do things to support the healthy inflammatory system that don't cause other problems for your body. Yeah. And that's where we can go down a path of, again, supporting the omega-3s. We talked about the use of the systemic enzymes, the proteolytic enzymes, and really the list goes on about what we can do to support that. Most people have heard about the benefits of turmeric or resveratrol or pterostilbene, and there's so many other nutrients that go down that path to support the healthy inflammatory response. Such a key for health overall.
So many options that are available. And you know what? 15 years ago, this was more anecdotal. I couldn't really supply evidence to people who were criticizing our philosophy or our conversation. We can do that now. You go to PubMed, you can look up so many things. They can't argue with us anymore because we have the background and the credibility to prove that these are valid options. Now, filter your water is the next one. I am hugely connected to the demise of our health that sometimes is part of the non-filtered water. And even with filtration, most people are clueless because I'm very anti-fluoride, as Dr. Mercola, and I'm sure as you, Dr. Depke. Fluoride lessens our IQ. It's just known. It's a known fact. And so we offer a carafe water filter. It's one of the few I've seen that actually filter fluoride. So, and again, to explain about the pharmaceuticals like upstream and how this is toxic to us.
Oh, well, just the non-filtered water, not only are we dealing with the potential challenges with chlorine or fluoride, but thinking of, the amount of people that, flush toxic chemicals down the toilet that gets into the water system that really doesn't ever get filtered out unless you're filtering it out. And it's one of, like, when I talk about fundamentals of health, with people through the years, they always say the second most important fundamental of your health is to properly hydrate the cells in your body. And not only just hydrating, but hydrating with good, clean, pure, filtered water. I not only filter the water in my house and also in my office. I also have on every shower in my house, I have a water filter for that. That's one area that most people don't realize. They think, oh, well, I don't want to take this toxic water in through my consumption of water, without recognizing that if you take a hot shower in the morning and you've got that steam rising from the hot shower and you're breathing that in, that's even a quicker, more efficient way of getting these toxins in the body through your water. And most people don't think of that aspect of it. So it's that combination of not only what you're drinking and also what you're showering and bathing in as well.
Absolutely. And, one of the reasons that I look back in the 1970s and 60s, some of the photos of schoolmates. We didn't have guys that kind of had man boobs. We just didn't. Today, it's epidemic. One of those biggest reasons is the kind of pretend estrogens that are in our environment. Water is one of the bigger sources, especially bottled water, because if it sits in a warehouse that has heat at all, it's going to put some of this plastic in the water, and it is just devastating our general health. But because it's become the norm, no one's even questioning it. Question all of these things, people. Don't get drowned in by them, but question it and put together a life plan. It's not that difficult, and it's not that expensive. It really isn't when you do the right things. EMF, electromagnetic field exposure. Woo! Mercola has been way ahead of the game on this one. I practice pretty dang well of keeping everything 5 feet away at bedtime and doing some of the right things. But tell people about this calcium channel voltage regulated thing that happens when you're exposed to EMFs and what we possibly could do with that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that where it's almost impossible to avoid. Yet we can still avoid it in every level possible. Because you think about all the people connected to the internet all day on their computer, or wired keyboards, and or these different wired trackballs and mice for your computer, and so much. And it's almost like, one of the best things that we could all do is when we go to bed at night is to make it as safe of an EMF level in our bedroom, using only and ideally a battery powered alarm clock rather than plugged in, avoiding, the use of smart products in your bedroom, or you can even just unplug them at night so this isn't running. Or the challenges with smart meters. Dr. Mercola has talked so much about that. And the other thing too is that while we can't always avoid it, we could actually also do things to support the body, which is, and we talked about the use of magnesium. That's also it's really supportive as an exposure to EMFs. And then another thing that I do every day, Ed, and I don't know if you do this or not, but every morning I start with a large glass of water with my H2, my molecular hydrogen. Because studies have shown that molecular hydrogen can actually mitigate and support the body from maybe about 80% of what's going on with an EMF perspective. And there's even simple protective spices like cinnamon or clove or ginger root, turmeric, all have these supportive factors for the body tied into our exposure to EMF. So it's so important across the board.
It's vitally important. And everything from anxiety to migraines to potential cancer rates. And I love Dr. Klinghardt, who Dr. Mercola has had several times. I followed him for 20 years, and he says we need to create a sleep sanctuary. And it made such good sense to me because we can't run from it during the day. And I'm so glad you brought up the hydrogen because it's actually not on our list. I own a hydrogen machine. I use the hydrogen tablets and recommend them highly to people to put them in water and they bubble and you drink it. It is valid science. Hydrogen will be a tool for the future, probably across the board. And it's not even under the radar screen, it's under the ocean. So it's going to get more popular as the time goes on. And we're not want to get too much into that right now, but hydrogen, keep that on your to-do list, people. Optimize sleep. I have an ebook on nutritionw.com that I wrote on sleep. And I also have this ring called an Aura ring, O-U-R-A. It's been a life changer for me. What this ring does is analyze from a medical standpoint, accuracy-wise, how well I'm sleeping. Well, I knew I wasn't sleeping too well, but I didn't know how bad it was until I got this. And I've had this about 9 months. It gave me incentive, and it also gave me feedback on things that I can do to improve sleep. What happens to people's health when they have chronic insomnia, as I have had off and on?
Here's the big thing is if everybody could just understand, when you sleep, your body does most of its maintenance and repair. It's such a key component of your body being able to be in its best place every day. And ultimately, when you're not sleeping well, you're never really getting to that best place. And then there's that snowball effect, right? Because when you're in a bad place and you're never really allowing the body to recover from that, you're just getting progressively worse. And this is like such a big thing for me, because people think of aging as they think how, hey, in our 20s, we're healthy and we're vibrant. In our 30s, we start to gain weight, get a little tired, maybe not sleeping as well. In our 40s, everybody goes on about all the problems as we progress. And what I always say is that what we as a culture recognize as aging, to me, is not aging. What we think of as aging is watching sick people get old. Because aging should be a very, very slow, almost not noticeable decline in our health, and we stay healthy and vibrant and active and thinking well and everything until right at the end of life. And one of the key components that always is getting a good night's sleep at the proper time, a full deep sleep, so you can get that regular daily maintenance and repair.
Absolutely. And I know that everything from memory loss to sensitivities with emotions and getting more irritable, all that comes with chronic insomnia. And again, we go back to, do we have a deficiency of Ambien? Is that the answer? Heck no, it's not. Maybe a week or two if you're having some major crisis, but please, people, understand that relying on those is digging that hole deeper that you're going to have a tougher time crawling out of. And lack of sleep makes fools of all of us, and it's something that can be managed. I always say not fixed, I say managed. And again, like aging, I'm looking, here I am almost 65. I see people now who are 55 who are like 75. They're 20 years older these days, and it isn't just bad luck. It's bad choices and not their fault, most people. It's because we don't have a system that's educating people comfortably. So you have to look for that. And thank goodness we have technology, because we have people like you who can teach us how to do this better. And you have to sometimes ignore traditional advice until it's valid, and then you do your own thing. Now, I know Dr. Mercola is really big about, I'll call it brainwashing internet-wise, but not really that. Ditching Google and Facebook once and for all. That was one of his titles. Why is that?
Well, it's just, it's from the perspective when as example, when I think of all of the access we have online, I think just the big thing is from an internet perspective and from a social media perspective, just recognize that not everybody has your best interests at mind. And really, I always say that, for people who are on the internet or people who are using social media, do your due diligence and get all of the facts. Don't depend on any one source to be your factual, direction of life. And that's where, to me, that's where people like Dr. Mercola are so priceless. And it's not just his, even if you just get his daily articles, to give yourself another version of what could be considered the truth. And on top of that, even with the censored library, which I'm a part of as well, it just allows you to get deeper into just open to more of what the facts could be out there. And that's my big thing. I'm not always saying, hey, ditch this or do that, yet recognize what it is and really what it's not. And unfortunately, a lot of people just think that when they find something on their browser or they find something on social media, a lot of people do still take it as fact. And I just say, be open to looking at all the options and making your best educated choice in regard to your health.
Absolutely. And I remember about 3.5 years ago or 4, when I heard that Google was changing the algorithms for searching, and especially about health. And I didn't realize the devastation as far as honesty and what would happen to our ability. About 3 months ago, I was doing a radio show. I have a radio show every Sunday, Vital Health Radio. And I looked up DEET, D-E-E-T, because I was going to do an article on bug spray and how toxic it was. Well, I remember it wasn't that long ago, it seems, maybe 4 years. I would bring up the dangers of DEET. I'd have all kind of opinions, both sides, neutral, left, and right. Guess what? I could barely find an article talking about the toxicity, and it is toxic. And so I'm thinking, what? So I know Dr. Mercola recommends DuckDuckGo. That's a site. And I started using it. I find it far more valuable. So DuckDuckGo is my replacement for Google. Tell people how they can subscribe to Mercola to get this information.
Well, really, with just going to Mercola.com, it will give you an option to really get the daily information. And then as you get the emails, with really providing another opinion for you, you'll also have an opportunity on all of those emails to even join the censored library. Because of just now where the world is nowadays, everything can't just be out there in an indefinite time period. So his articles are really only out for a short period of time, and then they go into that censored library. And I know from being a part of it myself, and I pay for the subscription just like everybody else does. And it's invaluable, though, because it gives me the ability to search for the things, to get an opinion of somebody who is not controlled by anybody else, which is why I love Dr. Mercola. And it's just invaluable for everybody.
I love it. Myself and a few other people at the store have signed up. Dr. Mercola is a hero, and anyone who's associated, I call heroes too, like yourself, Dr. Depke, because he is braving a storm almost unlike anyone else. And I cannot say enough about my gratitude for him and what he's done for the world, done for me, done for my business. So he is truly a hero. Protecting your eye health, it seems like people's eyes fall apart about 55 years old, and disease-wise about 65. Macular degeneration and all these other things can be delayed. I do say often, if we live long enough, we rent these bodies, they're going to start falling apart, but they shouldn't be doing it at 20 years before they should be doing it. How do we protect our eye health?
Well, and it's so important too, Ed, because even I'm 57, and people ask me all the time, do I wear readers, or do I have glasses, and no, at 57, and some people think, oh well, you must have just good genetics for your eyes. Well, no, that's not true. Both my parents wore glasses, when they were alive for as long as I can remember. But the thing is, though, is that doing the things to protect the eyes, whether it ties into two things we talked about earlier, or removing not only this high fructose corn syrup from your diet, but also those vegetable oils, really removing the trans fats from the diet is another important factor. And then really doing things like boosting the omega-3s, which we've talked about, something as simple as eating more vegetables on a regular basis. And some of the key nutrients too, from an eye perspective, is the lutein, the zeaxanthin, and the astaxanthin. Some of the best combinations of nutrients you could ever use to support vision health, and like one of the things that I love with the astaxanthin specifically, that is an antioxidant that also is one of the rare antioxidants that crosses the blood-brain barrier. And so many studies have shown the positive supportive impact of lutein and zeaxanthin on vision health. Because the whole thing is, I believe that we still have that ability to maintain this level of vision throughout our life without the need for glasses or readers or anything like that. And another little tidbit I'll throw in there is there's a great book that I am a big proponent of, is Take Off Your Glasses and See by Jacob Lieberman. Mm-hmm. It gets into some of the other components of eye health with different exercises you could do to stimulate those smaller muscles around the eyes that tend to atrophy as we get older, and different ways of using our vision to maintain a healthy vision for the whole life.
Thank you. And of course, the other part of this picture is preventing some of the devastating diseases, or delaying them, from glaucoma, macular, and all that. I do know that sometimes the shape of the eyeball is changing. That's one reason we can't see as well. And sometimes that doesn't have to do with poor health, and sometimes it does. I know that his part of this article is lowering your autoimmune risk. I love the recommendation, which I make to a lot of people for their kidney function, is using baking soda a little bit every day between meals. Tell people the magic that comes with this 1 cent remedy.
Yeah, well, it's really, it's as simple as you said. It's so inexpensive, so easy to use. And basically the baking soda provides a signal to the mesothelial cells, and these cells line the internal organs of your body. And basically those cells say, all right, the body's doing fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And rather than, because when the body is triggering a response of, oh no, the body isn't fine, very very often what we do is we develop this aggressive or even harmful response of the immune system that is really, it's not natural for this overly aggressive response, because there is a part of immunity where there is a small autoimmune response in the body where it's just cleaning up cells in the body that need to be cleaned up. But when we don't have that proper signaling of the mesothelial cells, we might be putting ourselves at risk. So when we can do something so easy just to support that in a very natural way, as simple as adding a half a teaspoon of baking soda into a half a glass of water, like maybe 4 ounces, stir it until it's dissolved, and then use that, whether it be once per day up to three times per day, is a great strategy from that perspective. And of course, as we've talked about with different aspects of also just supporting healthy immune system function overall, it goes right along with that. What a great piece to the toolkit that's so easy, so inexpensive. Do it away from foods. I do recommend. And secondly, I also always recommend it to people who have declining kidney function. It seems the kidneys love that baking soda. Now, blood pressure, we got to talk a little bit about that. I want to say real quickly, I had a client about 3 weeks ago, about 70 years old, first name Faye, won't say her last name. I've been running about 160 over
90, and despite medication changes from our doctor, she just couldn't. And I had this feel that it had to do with a modest amount of sleep apnea, and she didn't want to do anything about it medically. So I said, here's my remedy, same remedy I've had for 15 years. Go out and buy this tape in Nutrition World for $5 called NextCare. Rub it and put it on your lips, and because you're mouth breathing at night, because I asked her the questions. You wake up with dry mouth, you snore, blank, they're all the right. Yes, yes, yes. She sent me an email and said within 3 days, her blood pressure started dropping. In 2 weeks, it went from 160 over 90 to 107 over 67 because of breathing. Breathing is magical. One of the greatest books I've ever listened to recently is Breath. I think the guy's name is Nelson or something at the end. And he talks about, he actually had ENT plug his nostrils up with silicone plugs for 10 days. And they did blood work before, during, and after. His blood pressure went up 20 points just from mouth breathing. Mouth breathing is toxic, but let's not talk about that anymore. Let's talk about what other things can people do for blood pressure, and how important is it to manage that as we age?
Well, it's extremely important, because obviously the heart is a pump for the blood, right? And the amount of pressure that we have within, when we take our blood pressure is, we want to think of it from the perspective, the key of blood moving through the body, and not just in the main arterial system, but getting into the smaller capillaries, which is about really 75% of our circulation, is so important, because the need of the blood is to be able to carry oxygen and nutrients through the body, even help taking waste away from the body. And if we're not achieving that, we're far away from what we would consider optimal health. And some of the simple things like, making sure that we're moving the body on a regular daily basis, making sure that we're optimizing our vitamin D, and even paying attention to how we eat. Most people don't recognize this, but, Dr. Mercola talks about this all the time, is that, we should really focus on our food consumption in like a 6 to 8 hour window of every day. And Dr. Mercola has found that this does really help with the advent of insulin and leptin sensitivity. So when we can support that, that's often at a root cause of blood pressure. And even simple things that, and I say simple things, but people aren't doing the right things with this, is stress management. If we can just simply learn tools to perceive stress differently and to release it naturally, rather than all these people walking around like they're chronic stress balls all the time, and we're carrying the emotional component of that. There's simple tools like EFT, or even the other impact, like you were bringing up, Ed, even just deep breathing has such a calming effect on the body. And one of my favorites, something that I take every day, is the organic fermented beets, because of that ability to really enhance and support the nitric oxide levels in the body, which then actually helps to dilate those vessels to really support the natural movement of blood through the body. So all key components. And you're right, though, Ed, this is such a big part of health, because if we can't move the blood through the body, then we're not getting the optimal levels of oxygen and nutrients to the cells.
And we're at risk for other things. So that is such good, solid advice. And I'm with you. I take the beet capsules or tablets or chewables or liquids, something every single day to maintain nitric oxide. It helps my gym workouts and other things. Last point, and we're going to go, is I always talk about my diet is a leaning toward a keto diet. I don't usually hear other people saying that. I have been in straight ketosis. It's fine. It has a purpose. But I really eat about 50 to 60 carbs Monday through Friday. Then I eat more carbs on the weekend. One of those, thank you, Dr. Mercola, talking and educated me on we need to cycle through this. And part of this has to do with insulin sensitivity. And to me, that's one of the most important blood tests a person can get. In fact, I started just doing a gym posting from TikTok under Nutritional World Tennessee, and I've got 1.2 million views in 7 weeks. The one single post I made that had 500,000 views was on insulin. I could not believe it. I just titled it The Most Important Blood Test That You Can Get, Insulin, and it had 500,000 views within 1 week. Tell people real quickly why we want to manage and know our insulin and the implications of it not being good.
I think the biggest thing, and I've heard Dr. Mercola say this for years, is one of the best overall predictors of optimal health and natural longevity is your insulin levels. Keeping your insulin levels as low as possible. And it's so easily achieved by what we're doing with our diet. And we refer to it nowadays as keto. Yeah, I've been teaching keto for over 20 years, except 20 years ago, it wasn't called keto, it was just sensible eating. Eating, at the time was referred to as low glycemic. Now we use the terms low net carbs, but eating low glycemic or low net carb vegetables, eating a low to moderate amount of protein, and some really and a moderate to abundant level of good healthy fats like avocados, healthy versions of olives and coconut oils, and as you mentioned earlier, the whole potentially grass-fed butter, and even a step above that would be raw grass-fed butter, and really getting these really good quality fats. And the other thing that's a key, and I always want to make sure this is included, is it's not just about restricting every day. At least once per week, you want to have more carbohydrates, and especially those digestive resistant carbohydrates that actually feed the microbiome in the gastrointestinal system. So once a week, minimally, having some of that basmati rice or the papaya or some of these other really digestive resistant starches that are so important for the gastrointestinal health support.
Well, we are just blessed and grateful that you could take your time and come and join me to educate, empower people, because they're hungry right now. And that's one of the blessings of the past 2 years, is some of the people who actually awakened to this new idea that we actually have so much control over our health. We're not victims. We don't have to be a victim. And as long as you feel like we're broke and we're walking around as a broken victim, you're going to search for a rescuer. And those rescuers are not the people that I trust anymore most of the time. So, Dr. Depke, I just a million thank yous. This is going to go a lot to a ton of people, and it's going to change some lives. And I hope in about 6 months we can get back with you and we can do another one of these wonderful podcasts on another topic of natural health.
Ed, my pleasure. So great to be here, and it's an honor on my level.
Thank you, and please give my regards to Dr. Mercola.
I'll do that.